Reinhard.
Gino, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, good.
Hey.
Ooh, tricky getting around town this
Well,
morning.
yeah, we've got a funeral. It seems to be every other day these days.
That's it.
I guess we're all next. I guess, huh?
Well, eventually, you know, it's one thing.
You're not planning on checking out anytime soon.
Not anytime soon. Although, you know, I chair the new cemetery commission, and so I've been getting more and more familiar with what's involved in all this sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah,
you know?
that's right. Of course. And I've been hearing all kinds of things. Actually, I spoke with Mr. Lewis
Oh,
at
really?
the pharmacy today.
Yeah.
And I asked him to go for a ride with me.
Yeah.
In the van.
Really?
I'm working on it. How's your day?
Busy.
Yeah? What do you got going?
Well, let's see. First, a drive around with Gino this morning. Got to read the paper. I mean, the I&M's out. It's Thursday. And don't want to miss anything there.
Yep.
Got a couple of other things going on, meetings and stuff this afternoon.
David Wiggins.
Yeah.
Yep. Oop. Just dropped my tablet.
Uh-oh.
You know, these cobblestones are getting a little rough.
You know,
We might want to fix it, level them off a little bit. What do you think? Is it time?
I agree. You know, this section of road that we're on right here was just done about 8 years ago.
Oh my God.
And so you see the condition and so on. And when you think about how much it costs to do cobblestones, it's incredible. I mean, it's like you know, 10 to 1, or actually more if you're paving. But
Right.
no, I definitely am not advocating paving cobblestones.
No,
I
thanks.
mean, you know, it's part
I
of
love those.
Yeah, I do too.
I think we all do.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So why are you running again?
Well, it's a combination of reasons. First of all, you know, there are two seats that are open, and when I looked at the field early on, I was looking for two candidates I could support, and you know, nobody was running. I think one of the sad things is that, you know, you look at this coming election, there are only two contested races. The Board of Selectmen, yes, there are 7 candidates for 2 seats. The other one is SHAB, 4 candidates for 3 seats on SHAB. But look at all the other positions. Nobody's running for them. I mean,
what does that tell you?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that was part of my concern. I looked at the field, and then shortly before the papers were due, I took a look and said, gee, you know, I really should put my name in.
I asked you guys to come up with your own questions.
Yes.
And each of you has a question for each candidate. So Patty's question is, how should the town continue its efforts to live with expected revenue? To live within the expected revenue, I'm sorry.
Yeah, obviously a town has to have a balanced budget. I mean, that's state law. The state has to have a balanced budget. Everybody except the federal government seems to have needs to have a balanced budget. So what that means is that the town has a responsibility for meeting certain things. I mean, the whole reason that government exists is to provide services. Police department, fire department, legal system to enforce contracts, you know, et cetera, you know, you name it. Those are all services that are provided. The town also needs facilities. New police station was built, new fire station we're talking about. We definitely need some downtown facilities too. So the way that those are financed is by either taxes or fees. Fees are usually specific. So the sort of the long answer to the short piece is that a case has to be made for the voters to approve these expenses for either an override or to make adjustments in the budget. If there are certain things that you think the town, the voters feel we're spending too much money on, then they have to make the case for cutting those services, because remember, it's all services that we're talking about. So I guess the short answer to Patty's question is that any time a significant expense comes before the town voters, a very strong case has to be made to convince the voters to pay for it. It's pretty straightforward.
All right. So Matt Fee's question. What do you think the biggest problem facing us as a community is, and what do you think the selectmen can and should do to address it?
Wow. The biggest problem, boy. Well, in terms, focusing on what the town can do, because remember, the town is not omnipotent. We don't have a magic wand. The Board of Selectmen doesn't get a magic wand when they're elected. But in terms of what things the town can actually do, I think a couple of things. First of all, infrastructure.
Is that the biggest problem?
Well, that's a big one.
Okay.
We have to provide for our town employees an efficient, safe place to work. And we've been moving employees around from decrepit buildings to buildings that don't meet code to one situation after another. And the town has never, for obvious the money reasons, people, it's a difficult challenge. So I think that's one of the things where the town can be effective as far as addressing a problem. We have to deal with our infrastructure. And that means if we want to have employees downtown, we have to provide facilities for them downtown, adequate working facilities. We also need to address parking, because that's crucial to anything that happens downtown. Other problems where the town can have an impact, well, things like the landfill. We're counting down now in terms of the number of years before that contract expires. And so that's an issue.
So is there one bigger problem than another, though, Al?
I don't think so. I think that there are a number of issues that the town and the Board of Selectmen can and should and need to address. As far as prioritizing them, it's a question of which one is most important at the moment.
Right.
There's a whole range of issues that all need to be attended to, and where the leadership can come from. Let me give you an example. The leadership role of the Board of Selectmen can best be focused by the Board of Selectmen telling the town manager, who works for them, presumably runs the town. The Board of Selectmen can say, look, we want to address this situation. We want to bring town employees back into town. We need facilities to do that. And then direct the town manager, the other department heads, and so on. So this is our goal. This is what we want to do. Let's focus on this as a goal. And you can do that for whatever the issue is. But the goal has to be clear. What are we trying for? What are we trying to solve? And then give direction and resources to the people who can solve the problem.
All right, here's your question. Why do you believe voters should choose you over the other candidates for a seat on the Board of Selectmen? And what abilities and attributes make you most qualified for this highest town government board?
Well, I would say my experience in town government. As people may or may not know, I served on the Charter Commission back in the 90s, from 92 to 95, the County Charter Commission, and then from 95 to 98, the Town and County Charter Commission. During that process, I learned a tremendous amount about how government works, where the levers are, and how decisions are made, how things are done. Very valuable experience. I also chaired the Town Government Study Committee from 2005 to 2007. Again, we held 64 meetings. I wrote both the preliminary and final report for that committee. They're still, by the way, on our website. It was the first Town Government Committee website at govstudy.org. Our minutes are all there. Again, that was a good learning experience. I've been on the Board of Selectmen. I served 3 years on that term. I've served a number of different appointed committees for the town, as well as being elected to Land Bank and a couple of other positions. So I would say that my experience and familiarity with town government is one of the reasons that if I was an independent voter, I would vote for me.
Okay. Stephen Morey's question. In the last couple of years, we have seen volunteers resign from advisory committees, including the Town Energy Study Committee and the Taxi Advisory Committee. How do you think the Board of Selectmen has handled citizen input? And if elected, what would you do differently?
That's a topic near and dear to my heart because I have served on a number of appointed committees. I recognize that, say, Roads and Right-of-Way. I've chaired Roads and Right-of-Way since 2005, and I realize that as a committee chairman, our only power is to make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen. And we make recommendations, and the Board of Selectmen decides whether or not to, what to do with those recommendations. As far as how the town is handled, let's take specifically the Energy Committee. I would have handled it much differently in terms of we had a number of people who were very dedicated to that topic. There was a diversity of opinion that happened there, and I would say that the Board of Selectmen could have handled the dissension on that committee better. They could have been more, well, what's the way to put it, more receptive to, or more receptive to the arguments that were presented on both sides. I think they could have justified more clearly the action or inaction that they took on that particular proposal. I would say from my own experience, though, that if the committee is well organized, if they're well prepared, if the recommendations that they make to the Board of Selectmen are backed up with good information, that the committee has every right to follow through on whether or not those recommendations are good ones or not.
All right. What do you believe will be the most difficult part for you in being a selectman? This question comes from Tobias Glidden.
The most difficult part, well, let's say, I suppose the most difficult part, probably the meetings, the time commitment and so on. Although, I know what I'm getting into. Yeah. I've done it before. And fortunately, most of the meetings are scheduled in the evening so they don't conflict with work. So I feel comfortable enough. I have a flexible enough schedule in my work that I can accommodate, that flexibility.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Carol Dunton's question.
Yes.
Do you think the boards of selectmen should have been more diligent in supervision of the Airport Commission and the Airport Enterprise account during the several years the financial problems were allowed to develop?
Well, that's a good question. I was on the board when Foley Vaughn was reappointed, and I did take some heat for that. I personally felt that Foley, I've known Foley for a long time. I know his background. I know his dedication to that particular position. He is a pilot. His son, So I voted with confidence that Foley was the one to run the operation. I also knew Al Peterson. I have a private pilot's license myself, which I got back in the 70s out here at Nantucket Airport. So,
do you still use it?
No, I'm not current because it's gotten so expensive.
Did you actually have a plane at one time?
No, I've never owned a plane. It was always used to be a lot easier to rent.
And did you fly often?
Oh yeah, being here on Nantucket, this goes back to the 70s and 80s when I owned Snow's Bike Shop. Yes, I wish I had been a little more diligent. I took at face value the statements that were made. I look at the need for the airport, and this was the main project that Al Peterson was involved in. And Al actually got some things done. Unfortunately, you know, the way he got them done was, you know, has led to the town taking a look at how contracts are let, the whole procurement issue. I know it's had an impact on the water company. It's had an issue, you know, an impact on virtually all the enterprise accounts, and I think that's a good thing. It's really shaped up how these things are done. It has resulted in an increased expense because I know in the land bank now we have to go through a bidding process, and you know, so there are other implications. But in answer to Carol's question, I would say, yeah, I wish I had been more aware of what was happening underneath, but so be it.
Okay, and Joe Dooley's question.
Yes.
Do you remember how Nantucket used to be?
I remember how Nantucket used to be, yes indeed. Well, going back to 1960. I first arrived on Nantucket August 1st, 1960. Was here for a month. I was a teenager, 16, and came with my best friend from high school and his mother. It was, what an amazing place it was for a teenager to be here. And from that experience, I kept coming back summers, working at the Sandpiper restaurant on Main Street, then Snow's Bicycle Shop on Main Street, later bought the business. And after 52 years, the last 22 as a year-round resident, I've seen change, and I have very fond memories of Nantucket the way it used to be. And also, I love the history of this island. You know, one of the things that I've been able to do is learn a lot about the history of the island for my job as ranger and leading the tours that I do. So, you know, it's like I go into the cemeteries and I know who these people are because I've read their history. You know, I know when, you know, who they were married to, and these are the people who died back in the 1800s and so on. So, anyway, yes, I do have fond memories of how Nantucket used to be.
All right. Anything else you want to say to the voters out there, Alan? This is your chance.
Well, let's see. I think choice is good. I think it's good to have a lot of candidates that are running for office. I hope that voters will be informed. I do hope you'll take a look at the experience the voters bring, the maturity that they bring to the position, and will cast your vote in the right way. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you, Gino. This is always a trip.
You got it.
Always a trip.